3 races remain to decide the 2017 Red Bull Global Rallycross title. 3 chances for Tanner Faust and Steve Arpin to close the gap. 3 opportunities for Scott Speed to extend his newfound lead as he chases his 3rd straight title. But also 3 chances for a dark horse to play spoiler. Last month in Atlantic City saw plenty of action and a reversal of fortunes on top of the leaderboard. Now the final doubleheader of the season brings us to the Pacific Northwest as GRC takes over Evergreen Speedway just outside of Seattle. Time is running out for the contenders to make their mark. Round 10 of Red Bull GRC starts now. Red Bull GRC wraps up the 2017 championship with the final 3 rounds on the West Coast, just half an hour north of downtown Seattle. It all happens here with a doubleheader weekend at Evergreen Speedway. Hi folks, Lee Diffie and Townsend Bell here with you, ready to go for the first day of this doubleheader weekend action. Townsend, in this year's championship, we've seen new tracks, we've seen 4 different winners, we've seen classic and what has come to be expected in Red Bull GRC, just terrific racing. But the question for you, mate, is with 3 wins in succession, who is going to step up here today and stop reigning champ Scott Speed?
I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody has to step up in a big way to derail what is an absolute Scott Speed freight train right now, looking to win his 3rd championship in a row on the trot. Could it be Steve Arpin, who's 2nd in points, who's been really aggressive the last few races? Teammate Tanner Faust needs to rebound from a disastrous Atlantic City. Maybe the trio of Red Bull Hondas, somebody has to make it happen.
So at the last round in Atlantic City, the overarching theme for 2-time champion Tanner Faust is what could go wrong, Townsend, did go wrong.
It was just a mess, and the weather was a mess, but the Tanner Faust situation went from 1st to 3rd in points. He absolutely destroyed his VW Beetle there on the left side. Both wheels totally sheared off. I've never actually seen anything like that before, so it really was bad, but Tanner has the ability to bounce back. He's been in a hole before. As we look at the championship point situation, mathematically, everybody here is still alive. I'm really curious to see what those 3 Hondas in 4th, 5th, and 6th can do at a track like this.
It was a monstrous swing of some 67 points for Tanner Faust in Atlantic City, so he's really trying to rebound here, trying to rebound, recover, and retake the lead away from his teammate Scott Speed, who's standing by with Will Christian.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Scott, here you are at the beginning of a double-header weekend as our new points leader. We just heard Lee and Townsend talk about perhaps who your biggest rivalries are going to be this weekend. But from your perspective, and on a track that clearly lends itself to your driving style, is there any need to look over your shoulder right now?
I mean, this is rallycross. Anything can happen. That's the whole point, right? So I think the biggest rival is just the elements, right? And then the natural sort of way that the races go on. So we got to be smart. We have to make good decisions and, you know, keep a view of the big picture. And hopefully we're, you know, able to do our job right and, you know, things continue on the way they are and we can celebrate a 3rd.
Thanks so much, Scott. There you go, guys. Scott Speed, calm and collected.
Thanks, Will. Good stuff there, and Scott Speed trying to build on his triple by getting off to the best possible start here outside of Seattle on this doubleheader weekend. We take you to the highlights of Heat 1A, and it was pretty straightforward.
Just really hard to beat Scott Speed in a Volkswagen off the line, and once you let Scott Speed go, he's typically gone. Heat 1B, here we see Tanner Faust crammed up the inside, and again, Volkswagen Beetle to the front. Troubles for Steve Arpin, blew a motor on that round.
The weather will be a talking point throughout this entire weekend, but when the checkered flag flew on Heat 1B, it was Tanner Faust with the victory. So we scoot ahead to 2B, and more problems for Arpin.
Arpin just has some sort of a timing issue on the start. Luckily, the car survives, and he catches back up to the field, but it was a little too late. as you see Ericsson and Cindric side by side at the line.
They really enjoyed that scrap. They had nothing, though, for the other Ericsson. That's Oliver Ericsson, who grabbed the heat victory in Heat 2A. So on the opening day of this doubleheader, walking you through the overview of this first day, and we arrive at Heat 2B, all building points, heading towards the semis and, of course, the main event. And this one here, you've got to rub your hands together. You've got the Volkswagen and Andretti Rallycross teammates side by side.
And that is the championship battle right there. Points for every heat round. You can see the focus there from Tanner Faust. Preloading the car on the handbrake, ready to launch.
The Subaru teammates are in the middle. Who gets the best jump? No surprise to see the Volkswagens. They're side by side. It may just be Tanner Faust.
But that's not where Scott Speed wants to be, so he wisely tucks in, and now he's going to see, can I make a move on my teammate up the inside? They come to the brake zone and the transition to the dirt.
Oh, there's contact. Mitchell de Jong in the Red Bull Honda goes right around the outside. Is he too far wide? He hits Scott Speed and ricochets.
That dirt corner is off camber, so he's sliding down the hill after the contact with Speed. And look at Scott Speed just going to settle in here now, do what he does best, which is no mistakes, and find the pace to catch Tanner Faust.
That was a nice line from Patrick Sandell as we ride aboard Mitchell de Jong's Honda. Taking off is Tanner Faust on this opening lap of 5. We're going to take you back to the start of the race because they're packed so tightly here. You can't really do anything to avoid contact. It's going to happen eventually.
It's going to happen right off the start line. And right here, Scott Speed knows, okay, Tanner has the inside line, which is the fast line around here. I'm going to tuck in. But what Scott Speed has to be careful about is contact from behind. That's Patrick Sandell that's looking at the rear. There was contact just before that replay, and then side-by-side contact with Mitchell de Jong and Scott Speed. Mitchell de Jong, the worst for it.
I liked what Mitchell de Jong was trying to create there. Going around that outside, it was just a little unfortunate.
But the penalty for Mitchell de Jong is he's now 4 seconds back of the field by virtue of just that little contact and getting pushed out into the loamy dirt on the outside of this corner. Patrick Sandell has had really good pace. You can see it there, 4/10 off the last lap from Tanner Faust, but the Subarus have come here with a very competitive pace, both Atkinson, who was fastest in qualifying, and Sandell.
This section of the track before the jump, there's these 2 corners, what we're describing as turns 4 and 5. Scott Speed told us a little earlier today, in his opinion, they're one of the most challenging and most enjoyable sequence of turns on the GRC schedule.
Yeah, he really loves the flow into the right-hander before the jump. As you see Sandell cooking the right side tires heavily, just trying to hang in there with the Volkswagens. So Scott Speed about a second back of his teammate. Gonna figure out, do I do it with the Joker or do I try to close the gap? I think if I'm Scott Speed, I'm gonna close as close as I can, and then Joker, assuming Tanner Faust is gonna wait for the final lap to Joker.
So there goes the Subaru duo of Patrick Sandell and Chris Atkinson. 1 lap to go, and the top 2, the 2 who drive for Michael Andretti, will need to do the Joker on this final lap.
And given the points lead for Scott Speed, talking to Scott earlier this morning, he said, listen, I know where I am in the championship. I know what I have to do this weekend. I really see Scott Speed minimizing risk at all possible costs to make sure that he maximizes points and protects the car. He's been very fast on the Joker section in practice, and you can see it there. Look at him close the gap just in 2 corners to Tanner Faust.
And prior to this Heat 2A, Speed had only done the Joker twice before. This is the run to the line, the run to the checkered flag, and Tanner Faust will see it first. 2 heats, 2 wins for Tanner Faust. His teammate follows him home, and in third is Subaru Rally Team USA's Patrick Sandell. And speaking of Patrick, let's go back to the start of the race and let's go inside the cockpit of the Subaru. Look at this to the left, Faust and Speed.
And there's Sandell. He's thinking, I just need to do anything to stop this guy, Scott Speed, working the rear bumper as we ride on board with Mitchell de Jong. And here's the little contact that's going to tap him off camber and downhill, and he'll slot all the way back to 5th with that 1 move.
And unfortunately for the youngster, that's what put him all the way to the back. and comes home in 5th. So Faust, Speed, Sandell maximising the most points. This is a comeback theme weekend for Tanner Faust. Can he do it while his teammate continues to work towards a 3rd championship?
Red Bull Global Rallycross is brought to you by BF Goodrich Tyres. Are you driver enough?
Steve Arpin is a 2-time winner this year and contender for the title, but you don't need a doubleheader weekend at starting like this.
No, not at all. Engine issues for Steve Arpin. You can see the frustration there as they try to figure out what might have happened.
And then in 2A, when the lights went green, unfortunately, Steve did not go anywhere and was playing catch-up from that point. With more about Arpin's weekend so far, we join Will Christian. Will?
Thank you, Lee. Yes, I'm here with Steve now. Steve, as we've just seen, not exactly the start you were looking for. Tell me what happened in that second round of heats.
Well, this track's been really hard on tires here this weekend, so we're trying not to burn out. We're trying not to spin the tires off the start, save the tires for later. So I wish that was our problem. We've had so much wheel spin. We've just been trying to find that limit of how low we can go, how tame we can make it, and we just went one step too far. So as soon as I went to release the clutch, the motor just fell on its face and died. But the car's good. We exploded a motor last night. It was quite spectacular, actually. Car has plenty of speed. Guys got a brand new motor in it, full of Ineos engine oil. We're protected to put it through whatever this course can put at us today, and it's going to be interesting. It's not the start we wanted, but we're good at our motto this year is keeping on digging, and my God, we're going to come from the back today.
A positive attitude as always, and you got all your support behind you here. So
look at all these Ineos hats we have, right? We're golden.
So we've seen a bit of the track through our heats here so far, but let's take a closer look now with Tanner Faust. So take a look at our Honda track mat.
I'm Tanner Faust, driver of the Rockstar Energy Drink Volkswagen Andretti Beetle, and this is the course preview here in Seattle, Washington. It's a pretty tight little track. We're not full throttle for more than just about a second or two this track, so it's not all about horsepower, much more about handling, braking, and line. And we're off, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Here, it's difficult to know how much to slow down. The oval carries you up. Try to keep down nice and low, weight on that front right tire, and hard on the brakes into turn 2. Oh, actually, there's a lot of grip in turn 2. This one, we just want to stay nice and high on the oval. Try to take advantage of some of that grip as we come down into the very slippery jump. Try not to slide too much. And look for our apex, there it is. Yoga lap is extremely narrow. Hard on the brakes, jumping the curb. And it's a big wall on the exit joker lap. Got to be careful not to go wide here and back into the mini oval, looking for the finish. It's a very technical track, not a lot of throttle. Very important on the handling. And that, woo, is a lap of Seattle. Are you jealous, Townsend? I bet you are.
Fair play, Dapper Man. Fair play. Last time I tried to commentate while driving a GRC supercar, I put it right into a hydro barrier.
Well, that man there who just took us for the Honda track map is 2 for 2. Tanner Faust hasn't been beaten yet. Supercar Heat 3A coming up. This fall, anywhere in the world when Americans are at risk, one team brings them home. The Brave premieres Monday, September 25th on NBC. As we welcome you back to Evergreen Speedway, just north of downtown Seattle, transitioning to the 3rd round of heats for Red Bull GRC Supercar competition, and Heat 3A is first on the menu. Next time we see the supercars after this, it'll be semi-finals time. Steve Arpin on the left-hand side of your screen in the Ineos orange machine. He needs something to go right a little bit better. Mitchell de Jong, will he try that outside move again? Austin Dine in the middle, and then Chris Atkinson and Sebastian Eriksson on the far right. Good to see that those Red Bull Hondas have finally put some distinguishing colors across the windshield. You can finally tell. Sebastian Eriksson is in the blue, Mitchell de Jong has the yellow, and Oliver Eriksson, who's not in this race, has the red.
And after the first 2 heats, Steve Arpin now sits 3rd in points, just behind Tanner Faust. So Arpin needs a big heat race here. Good start for the orange Ineos car on the outside. He's an oval racer by trade. Let's see what he can do, working the high side.
Oh, look at Atkinson in the Subaru in the middle. Wheels smoking, tires smoking, but it's the Red Bull Honda on the inside. Will carry the momentum. Now, oh, carnage onto the dirt section. Ericsson gets turned by Arpin.
But Arpin was hit first to turn Ericsson, so they went 4 wide. Who knew that was possible here at Evergreen Speedway? And there goes Mitchell DeYoung with the bump and run. Things are going to get dirty now. Lots of contact in the first corner.
Oh, that got ugly on the opening lap. And the big winner was Subaru Rally Team USA's Chris Atkinson. He said, I'll leave you with it, guys. See you later.
Yeah, but how about Mitchell DeYoung keeping it clean and finding a way to make the move? And let's go back and look at this insane 4 wide through the oval, the paved section. There's Arpin. He gets on the brakes, and Atkinson got into him, but I don't think Atkinson had any option. No. Arpin came right across his nose. That pushed Arpin sideways as we ride with Mitchell DeYoung, and what a breath of fresh air for Chris Atkinson. He's had great pace. He was the fastest qualifier for today's round, and Atkinson trying to check out now.
Oh, this is going to help immensely for the grid spots for the final, and now starting to take jokers because that first lap is done in this semi-final. But Atkinson has clear space behind. Last time he had almost 2 seconds over Mitchell DeYoung in the Red Bull Honda. I wonder what Sebastian Ericsson's thinking as he tries to play catch-up. By the way, no penalty box here this weekend in the doubleheader in Seattle. If there is any penalty that will be applied, it'll be a time penalty problem for Austin Dine.
There you see right rear damage, maybe a toe link or a suspension arm. Probably the result of contact, either in that first turn 3, first lap situation. But Austin Dine has to retire. Chris Atkinson, 2.1 seconds over Mitchell DeYoung. There goes DeYoung, and Atkinson is working that right rear tire very aggressively on the asphalt.
Hasn't had the optimum setup this weekend all the time, but this is a nice strong run from Chris Atkinson. Came into this round sitting 7th in the championship.
Mitchell DeYoung, that was beautiful. Excellent drift to slide wide and square up the exit, and he closed the gap maybe just a little bit with that move. But for Atkinson, we talked to him earlier today, and he said, listen, we're maybe not all the way there yet with the Subaru, but we are close. We are right on the heels of those Volkswagens. A year ago in a 10-lap main, Atkinson said, I would have been 6-7 seconds behind. Now, maybe I'm a second, or maybe I can make a big first lap and make something happen. But Atkinson is getting more and more confident with the handling and the performance of his Subaru.
And look what his teammate Patrick Sandell did in Atlantic City. Held Scott Speedoff for the longest time. Speedoff ended up winning in the end, but a fine podium for Patrick Sandell. So joker on this final lap for the top 2 in the race. Mitchell DeYoung chasing Subaru's Chris Atkinson, who will complete this final sequence of turns and see a checkered flag waiting for him. Semi-final number 1 win for Atco. Chris Atkinson over Mitchell DeYoung.
Whoa!
Oh, and it goes on. Sebastian Ericsson is not happy about what went down on the opening lap. These two may have a little discussion after the race.
And for Steve Arpin, with that 3rd place finish, he now draws himself back even with Tanner Faust in the points. So Faust and Arpin tied for 2nd in the points before the semifinals.
Was that wild enough for you? Oh boy.
This was insane. 4 wide. Arpin into Ericsson. Austin Dine had trouble at some point later on, and Mitchell DeYoung was very clever with the inside move. Be right on board with Arpin. And I'll bet Ericsson thought there's no way somebody's going to hit me in the right rear coming to a left-hand hairpin.
I'm wondering if Arpin got tagged going in there because
he did
broke sideways.
By Atkinson, but that's because I think Arpin came across the bow and Ericsson was going for the neck at the finish line.
So that sets the tone for the doubleheader weekend here in Seattle. Chris Atkinson victorious over DeYoung and Steve Arpin. Woo, that was a wild one to get semi-final going. And the good news is we've got more coming. Sorry, pardon me. Heat 3, I should say. More Heat 3 action coming.
Since the beginning of the season, if there's one team that has developed more than any other, it's Subaru Rally Team USA.
A year ago, we could be out-dragged, and you could see it. You could see the power deficit. And now we're back a year later, and we're equal with those cars.
On the chassis side, we've been working a lot with the suspension. We've coupled that with a really good engine step, and the performance gain from it was really clear.
This has been many months of testing and development, finding things at the event, going back and testing it again, and it's all been sort of staircasing, and we can see the improvement.
The team's progress has been highlighted with recent success. 2 podiums in the last few events.
We really needed this podium because it's insane the amount of hours they put in Vermont Sport Car and Subaru, so I'm so pleased for them.
Subaru's Rallycross team is inching towards parity with their dominant rally program, which is fresh off setting a new record up the Mount Washington Hill climb.
To get the record here is something that's real close to everyone's heart at Vermont Sports Car. It means a lot. It's really cool.
And Travis Pastrana narrowly beat teammate David Higgins to earn the team's 8th consecutive championship. Now their dedicated fan base can't wait to see what Atkinson and Sandell will do here in Subaru country.
For any of you who are into rally competition, you know what an evocative brand Subaru is. It has such a heritage, such a history, and it's great to see the team and the brand in Red Bull GRC making progress, heading towards some victories down the road. Patrick Sandell almost did it in Atlantic City. Want to update you on the points because this is how they sit heading into 3B. And of course, the teammates will be at it again, Tanner Faust and Scott Speed.
What will happen on the start as you see the lineup? Tanner Faust with the inside position. That's where you want to be, but Scott Speed will be trying to figure out if he can work his way to 2 wide or if he's going to have a Honda up the inside. Do these guys go 4 wide like what we just saw in the last round?
Heat 3B set to go. Will it be as wild as 3A? We're about to find out. Oh, Austin Cindric and Scott Speed were side by side there for a moment. Tanner Faust it is again on the inside.
Tanner Faust gets a little sideways at the apex. Speed is very much inline and smooth. That's his motto. Sandell looking inside, over-rotates, but Austin Cindric is able to push his way through. Great start for Austin Cindric.
And here comes Oliver Eriksson on the inside. Sandell is getting forceful back there in 4th place. Cindric may feel he has a shot at one of these Volkswagens in 3rd.
A little bit of breathing room now for Faust and Speed as Cindric, Sandell, and Eriksson all stacked up, looking for that 3rd position. On board with Sandell. You know, Sandell's always one of the more excitable drivers on the first lap, and then things kind of settle in. See a bit of right rear smoke as the spotter says, prepare for the Joker.
So we can go clean. If the guy in front of you, Austin Cindric, doesn't do it, we're going to do it. Trying to find some clear track space. The Joker again runs longer here. It is not shorter. But now, if there's not that disruption in front, Patrick Sandell may be able to do some lap times good enough that he could leapfrog Austin Cindric. On board with Scott Speed.
You really get the feeling that Scott Speed is perfectly content to be patient, not make any mistakes, and not put himself in a situation where he's over-challenging his teammate Tanner Faust in these earlier rounds. Watch Scott Speed's hands. In rotation, Scott Speed barely ever makes a counter steer correction. His hands only go about even to center. You just never see those big opposite lock moments with Scott Speed. See what he does as he comes to the dirt here. Tanner Faust on the brakes, Scott Speed down to 3rd gear, little handbrake hit, slight correction. So quick on the very small surgical inputs. I call him the surgeon, Scott Speed.
So Valentino Rossi can be the doctor, Scott Speed the surgeon, huh? You
got it. Scalpel in hand, he's going to carve up this field if he can. But right now, Tanner Faust, Scott Speed takes the joker, so Tanner Faust is going to save it for the last lap, and Scott Speed cannot let Austin Cindric cause any interruption to his pace. If he's going to have a chance, Scott Speed on Tanner Faust, he needs to stay ahead, and he does.
As you see on the pylon on the left of your screen, Austin Cindric has not taken the joker yet. Final lap of Heat 3B, semi-finals coming up, not too far away. And again, the guy you see there in the Oberto Volkswagen Beetle, Scott Speed has won 3 main events in a row. He gets hit by the teenager. Austin Cindric turns Scott Speed around.
May have worked at Mosport in NASCAR trucks, but that will not be well received here in GRC as Scott Speed, the points leader, sits totally disabled, and Tanner Faust takes the win. Great news for Faust.
Oh, look at this. Scott Speed is hot. And Austin Cindric will face him back in the paddock area.
And they will meet again, I promise you. There's plenty of racing left for those two to duke it out.
The championship leader gets turned by the Red Bull GRC debutant.
And I think what happened there is that Cindric needed to joker. And so Cindric was waiting for the best opportunity to joker and just probably mistimed it there in the final corner. Speed had already jokered at that point.
Let's have another look at it. Austin Cindric in the black and green car, headed to the joker, but missed it by about a quarter of a car, tagging the back of Scott Speed. Oh boy, this is a wild champion. Trying to win his 3rd title in succession, did not appreciate that.
Sunday night is football night. Eli Manning and the Giants take on Dak Prescott and the Cowboys in the season premiere of Sunday Night Football. Mike Tirico and Dan Patrick host Football Night in America at 7 Eastern, only right here on NBC. Before the break, we saw our last race, Heat 3B, and things really heated up. We see Austin Cindric coming out of the joker lap, trying to chase down Scott Speed. An over-aggressive move, tapping into the back of him, spinning Scott Speed out, and he was not happy. He knows there are important points on the line. He got out of his Beetle to speak to Cindric. Cindric wanted nothing to do with him on the track and raced off, but they did catch up with each other in the spin zone. Like I said, things got heated. So let's have a listen in.
You know why? I don't know if you're worth really trying. You know what the situation is here? No. No, Mr. I'm gonna wreck the guy because I'm going for the points. You seem to have a good idea of the points.
I guess I misjudged that you and I needed to take the joker and I had more interest in it. Sorry.
Yeah. You understand like what's going on though with the points and all that? You know, like basically your guest that thought your way into a ride.
Scott Speed there pointing out just how important this race is here today and important those points are for him. We're going to see him continue to battle out in the next semi-final round, semi-final 1, when he will be going up against his teammate Tanner Faust. Back at Evergreen Speedway in Seattle, round 10 of Red Bull Global Rallycross continues, and it's been a great day for Tanner Faust, 2-time champion who has had the blackjack today. That means he's won all 3 of his heats, so he's sitting in a great position to attempt to take back that points lead. A very different story from when we look back to Atlantic City, when we had 2 rounds of doubleheader action which were filled with trials and tribulations for him. We had a camera there for all access pass there. We had a look at Tanner's weekend and what was in store for him. Tanner Faust came into this weekend with a 26-point lead. He now finds himself 7 points behind his teammate Scott Speed.
You're back to your base setup, so what you were qualifying on free practice, I guess, yesterday. Your dry setup, what we know, we had good performance with it.
inside, stay with it. Clear inside, clear inside. Outside.
Tanner Faust busts a wheelie over the back of Steve Arpin. I'm sure Faust is thinking, oh man, I'm getting pushed around again. I am sick of this.
Did you draw my card?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. That was awesome. Love it. Put my number on it.
5 wide, 5 wide, 5 wide. Stay late, stay 5 wide, 5 wide, 5 wide.
Faust getting up in the air for the second time today, back in 5th behind the Red Bull Hondas.
Got a check for damage on the front right. Man, I'm having some bad luck with this wheel-to-wheel stuff.
We double checked the front end also. Put T-bars on, everything looks good. So didn't see anything bent or broke or anything. So all right.
Tanner Faust trying to stay perfect in semifinals throughout the season. Side by side through the chicane, Oliver will hang on to second, and Faust is squirrely through there.
You've now been issued yet another penalty, a 3-point penalty, which drops you down to 3rd now.
In this case, I do think that from, all the stuff, the chaos I've seen today and the carnage yesterday, that's a call for a penalty, especially just enough to put you in 3rd place. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's pretty dark right now. All the way over the whole thing is pretty wet. Roger, that'll make visibility fun.
Let's go! Tanner Faust off in the grass in the back.
And where is Tanner Faust? Way back. He's dead last. There's just something about Atlantic City and Tanner Faust that is toxic for his championship hopes.
Into the tires, further back in the pack as Tanner Faust tries to rescue some points. Scott Speed is a supercar winner, taking round 9 from Atlantic City, and they're stacked up back in the pack, and that includes Tanner Faust.
Oh, Tanner Faust gave a little nudge to Sandell. Sandell goes hot into the corner with big contact and then holds up Faust to the finish line.
Hey, driver the rest of the weekend. I like it.
You
apologize me for driving too much.
I was a little aggressive in the gravel, but on the last one, honestly, he came over like Bigham did, and I was up his before.
I know, that's what I told Matthias.
Ultimately, it was a 67-point swing this weekend for Tanner Faust, who entered as the championship leader. So Speed going for his 3rd title in a row. Steve Arpin and Tanner Faust still within range.
Can't wait for Seattle.
As we said right at the top of the broadcast, anything that could go wrong for Tanner Faust in Atlantic City last month did. However, we bring you up to speed with the current points coming into semi-final number 1, and the margin is back down to 37 points, so creeping a little closer to his Andretti Rally Cross teammate. Where are we in the phase of the opening day of this doubleheader? Getting ready for semi-final number 1, and the top 2 in the championship are sitting on the front row of the grid.
And once again, Tanner Faust will be inside his teammate Scott Speed in the red and white Beetle, and turn 1 so important.
Oliver Eriksson on the far side. Look for that red windshield strip, the yellow windshield strip here of Mitchell DeYoung, and this is Austin Dine aboard the Rahal Letterman Lanigan machine. That's Mitchell DeYoung, set to go. Semi-final number 1 here in Seattle.
Scott Speed looked absolutely relaxed at the wheel. He knows he just needs to keep it clean to keep that freight train of championship hopes going, but Speed challenging Faust side by side in 1. Look at Austin Dine into the side of Mitchell DeYoung further back.
Oh, contact between the teammates. Tanner Faust gets all squirrely into the dirt section, able to maintain the lead.
Scott Speed slots into 2nd. Austin Dine with a bold move into 4th. We ride on board with Dine.
Speed 2nd. Austin Dine gets a little crossed up there. And here comes Mitchell DeYoung at the back.
Mitchell DeYoung side by side. Austin Dine over-rotated and then had to check up. That cost him on momentum. Now Mitchell DeYoung looking for a way around.
Lap 1 of 6 complete. I want to take you back to the opening lap and go on board the Oberto Volkswagen Beetle of Scott Speed and show you that contact between himself and teammate. Problems at the rear here for Eriksson. Look to the right. Here's the onboard replay.
So we know Tanner Faust is inside. There's the nose, the black Rockstar Beetle. Now Scott Speed comes up the inside, but Tanner defends. Just gets over, and in doing so, comes across the bow of Scott Speed. There's a little bit of contact, and Tanner Faust goes into a 2 or 3 round tank slapper, but manages to hold on.
comfortable now. Andretti Rallycross cars 1 and 2. I think that's just a bit of tyre rub on Oliver Ericsson's car back in third.
Possibly, or he's just overcooking the right rear. I mean, that is a lot of abuse to the right rear tire. If it's tire rub or just working, you're right, Lee, it's tire rub. You can see the damage there. There's the body work caved in. Right rear fender curling back to the tire. So up front, Tanner Faust, and I love this corner. Look at the drift. It's like watching two ballerinas come just tiptoeing through the corner.
As they approach the jump, the 70-foot jump, which isn't taken at as high a speed as some other GRC tracks on the calendar. That was Austin Dine taking his Joker in this 6-lap semi-final. Distance between first and second, the Andretti teammates 1 second exactly.
And we've seen this exact scenario earlier in the heats where Tanner Faust is out front.
2.6 out back.
And Scott Speed doesn't appear to want to challenge Faust too aggressively. I think that might change when we get to the final round. 2.6 second speed to Ericsson. And all three of your top 3 drivers still need to joker with 2.5 laps to go.
On this, what we're theming, a turnaround weekend, a comeback weekend for the driver of the Rockstar Beetle, Tanner Faust. It's going to plan, because just slowly, race by race, whether it be heat by heat, semi by semi, he's doing that. He's finishing ahead of Scott Speed at every opportunity to claw back whatever he can.
And I think what we saw at Atlantic City was if Tanner Faust had an issue in the first corner or two, he sort of went into chaos mode, desperately trying to keep the championship hope alive. As long as Tanner Faust gets a clean start like he did right there, Scott Speed takes the Joker, I think Tanner's fine.
Yep.
He can settle in and get the pace. He just needs to stay composed if he doesn't get a good first lap. Scott Speed, the master of composure, as he comes out just ahead of Oliver Ericsson. Ericsson will still need a Joker on this final lap.
And that shows you the exact time difference of taking the Joker and not. Remember that call on the radio? 2.6 back. That was Scott Speed, 2.6 seconds ahead of Oliver Ericsson, as Townsend mentioned, and comes out about half a second ahead of him. So it is around about that 2-second mark that what it costs you.
For Tanner Faust, it's picture perfect. Look at the beauty of the drift. He has so much experience driving any kind of car sideways. Tanner Faust, I think, more comfortable sometimes sideways than perfectly in line. There's your Joker moves, comes out comfortably ahead of Scott Speed.
Not a problem there. Checkered flag is waiting. Tanner Faust, it's the perfect weekend thus far. Undefeated in his Andretti Rallycross Volkswagen Beetle. Has not been headed to the checkered flag. That's the way to do it. What in stark contrast to Atlantic City, that's for sure. Here's how they came across the line. Tanner Faust ahead of Scott Speed, the championship leader. Oliver Ericsson with a somewhat wounded Red Bull Honda ahead of his teammate Mitchell DeYoung, and Austin Dine coming in. So that's one semi down. The next coming up. More GRC from Seattle.
Red Bull Global Rallycross is brought to you by BF Goodrich Tires. Are you driver enough?
One semi-final down, the other to come. Yes, this is where we are, determining what that grid will look like for the final and who's grabbing the most points in the big picture. Because at the end of today's final, only 2 rounds remain in this 2017 championship. A couple of Swedes on the front row in Sebastian Eriksson and Patrick Sandell, and Australia's Chris Atkinson in the second of the Subarus. This is 19-year-old Austin Cindric, who has driven absolutely everything there is to drive. This is his first official weekend in a Red Bull GRC supercar, and he had that altercation in the last round of heats with Scott Speed. Things got pretty heated there, and watch for this man here, 3rd in the championship points order, 2 times a winner this year, Steve Arpin. He's done a lot of NASCAR-style racing before, so watch for him. He's not afraid to take that high line.
Neither is Patrick Sandell. As Sandell starts from the point.
And it's Atkinson with a flyer, but not quite as good as Sebastian Eriksson. Eriksson will take the lead. Oh, he's sideways! Really sideways! And Steve Arpin was up into the wall.
Steve Arpin with damage, I think, to the right rear. Steve Arpin is having a really tough time here in Seattle. That is a big blow to his championship hopes, as Austin Cindric is working the rear bumper of Patrick Sandell. But Ericsson, what a brilliant piece of car control to hold on there through the turn 1 of the oval.
Oh, Steve Arpin came into this second semi-final 18 points adrift of Tanner Faust. That's going to hurt big time. But what a start it was from Sebastian Eriksson.
And I'm sure there must have been contact maybe from Atkinson up the inside to throw Eriksson into that big rotation, as we see Steve Arpin shutting down off the track and retiring from this semifinal. And Arpin must be thinking, what do I have to do to just get one clean round in?
Let's show you what happened. We mentioned that the Canadian's not afraid to take the high line, but perhaps a little too high.
And there goes Atkinson inside. As you see the turn 1 replay, that's too much action to cover at once. Atkinson takes the lead, as you saw the replay of Eriksson and Arpin with moments on the start.
And once you get offline here, especially through NASCAR 1 and 2, track is very dirty, and Steve got up there and that wall was waiting for him. Sandell putting the pressure on Eriksson now, and Atkinson is starting to skip away. Subaru man thinks about the inside run. Let's ride on board. How much do you think that Atlantic City podium gave this man the morale boost he's been looking for all season?
Not just Sandell, but that entire Subaru team. All the top brass from Subaru were in town in Atlantic City, and that really rejuvenated the whole program. They know they have the speed. They've worked hard to get it, and now they're taking it to the teams like Red Bull, Honda.
Find a way around him now. Your decision if you want to find the European tail.
Eriksson getting a little bit wide through turns 1 and 2. Like you said, Lee, not a lot of grip up off the inside line. Now Sandell has a chance. He has a bumper on Eriksson. The bump and run is not on there. Eriksson hangs on with some throttle at the apex of the dirt. That four-wheel drive held him straight.
He's going to take the Joker. Yes, he is. Radio call went out. It's your decision, Patrick. You want to take the Joker now or save it for later?
Smart move from Patrick Sandell. He's clearly the quicker car, so get yourself some clean racetrack to demonstrate the pace and create the gap, and it should come right back to him when Eriksson has to Joker.
Surprised that Austin Cindric hasn't been able to run with these guys. He's had good speed this weekend. Wonder what the story is there for him in the Brian Herter Rally Sport car.
Can only imagine he's a bit gun shy after the contact with Scott Speed earlier. There's a championship battle happening here in Seattle. Cindric put himself in the middle of that, and I'm sure drew the criticism. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Hello, Patrick Sandell. My name's Austin Cindric, and I'm here to play.
And he's taken the Joker as well. So that legitimately puts Austin Cindric ahead of Patrick Sandell.
Well, that hurts Sandell with Eriksson. As you see, Eriksson now comes out ahead of Sandell because Sandell had to race Austin Cindric. So Sandell drops to 4th.
Watch this, watch this. Cindric may have a shot at grabbing 2nd. Inside.
That's Sandell looking inside of Cindric, and Cindric has one corner to make it happen. What does he do?
Race leader Atkinson must take the Joker now.
Whoa! He's learning, Austin Cindric. It's a tap dance, it's a tightrope walk, and he's learning the subtle touch of wheel-to-wheel GRC racing.
First weekend in a supercar as Chris Atkinson for Subaru Rally Sport USA takes the semi-final #2 win. After a pretty big skirmish on the opening lap, opening turn that saw Steve Arpin go out. For the man they call Atco, really nice win, and was able to do it quite comfortably. We're going to take you back to the start of this second semi-final on board with Steve Arpin. This will tell us what went down.
Gonna listen here, see if it was the wall contact.
Just took evasive action.
Well, he saw the contact between Atkinson and Eriksson up front. Got wide on that dirty section. And here is the pass for the win. Chris Atkinson on Eriksson, Sebastian Eriksson. And then let's take a look at Sandell. He watches that move. Nice clean pass. Sandell backs out to avoid the contact and then up and over the jump.
So, the results of semi-final #2, Atkinson, Eriksson, and Austin Cindric in the top 3. Your thoughts have to go out for the man who's in the top 3 of the championship, Steve Arpin. Nothing is going right for the Canadian this weekend. Reminding you that on October 14th, the Red Bull Signature Series takes you off-road in Wisconsin for intense high-speed racing that sees off-road trucks flying. It's also the single largest payday purse in the sport. It is the Crandon World Cup, Saturday, October 14th on NBC. If you haven't seen it, it is nothing short of spectacular. Now, of course, yes, the spotlight is on supercar racing here in Red Bull GRC, but the lights you'll see in action from here in Seattle this Wednesday, September 13th at 4:30 Eastern on NBCSN. There's a championship on the line there, T-Bell, as well.
There really is, and that guy right there, Cyril Raymond, is the man to beat. The man from France has got the moves and the pace here in GRC Lights this season.
All right, talking points, talking championships. In the lead up to today, in this doubleheader weekend, today's main event, let's remind you of where the championship sits, with the two-time and reigning champion Scott Speed boasting a 36-point advantage over his Andretti Rallycross teammate. Time to hear from one of the supercar competitors. Chris Atkinson is with Will.
Thank you, Lee, and I'm here with Chris now. Like you said, he just told me he's feeling better than normal was how he summed up his mood. It's going to be a little better than that, Chris. We're looking at 2 wins now today. You've been fast right from practice. What is it about this track that's working so well for you?
I don't think it's just the track, it's this whole team. You know, we've been coming together better and better each race, and this speed's been evolving from Indy to Atlantic City to here, and it's just that constant evolution. And when you get at the front, it's easier. You've got clean air, you can race, and you can get wins. And although our starts haven't been perfect, the car's been super quick in lap times. So we're right there with VW's pace-wise, which is awesome. A little bit more, and we'll be winning races.
And you've got so much support here as a Subaru team, such a huge fan base. How much does that help you guys?
Yeah, it's unreal. You see the crowd when we do the driver intros. There's Subaru fans out there. It's cool. It's a big Subaru area up here in the Northwest. So very, very nice to be here. Awesome to represent Subaru, and just trying to get a good result for everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Best of luck in the finals.
Atco's been on the podium. Can he get there again? Meanwhile, at the top of the championship, Scott Speed is going for his 4th main event win in a row, but his teammate looks like giving him the toughest fight. See who wins when we come back. When you're a championship contender like Steve Arpin, you hope in the last 3 rounds of the championship things to go your way. They have not at all so far today. And he's not the only one to have some misfortune. Championship leader Scott Speed was fired up with rookie Austin Cindric, and they had words after that altercation. However, silky smooth today. That's the only way to describe Tanner Faust, because he is undefeated through heat and semi-final competition. The perfect way to enter this, the first of 2 main events this weekend, the last doubleheader of the year, headed to the season finale in Los Angeles. It's all to play for here today. Let's head to the grid with Will Christian.
Thank you, Lee. Yes, absolutely. Very composed. Tanner Faust sits in the pole position. He did come into this weekend with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He knew he needed to perform if he was going to stay in this championship hunt. So far today, he's executed that perfectly, and that's exactly what he's done. I spoke to him in the break between semi-finals and gridding up here for the final. I wanted to see where his mindset was, and he said, I'm on a points-gathering mission. I said, what's your plan? He said, baby steps. The first step starts with getting through turn 1, and then he's going to take it from there. So we'll see if that plan works, guys.
And Townsend, that's a pretty fair way, as we show you who lines up where. That's a pretty fair way, an accurate way of describing Tanner Faust's day. He's got good starts all of the time, kept it clean, and said, see you later.
It's a shocking contrast to the last round in Atlantic City where everything went wrong, but it's thumbs up right now as Tanner Faust prepares for this final, but he's going to have a challenge from row 2 with Austin Cindric, Oliver Eriksson, and Sebastian Eriksson, 2 Red Bull Hondas that'll be charging hard.
The Hondas have been getting off the line very well. There is Austin Dine, and he'll start alongside Patrick Sandell in the other Subaru, and Mitchell DeYoung on the far side of that respective row. And Steve Arpin, boy, he's had this view before. That is starting on the last row of the grid. Tried to avoid an incident in turn 1 in the semi-final, and that's what put him into the wall. He got up there into the grey and into the dirty part of the track, and it just grabbed him and brought him into the wall. So let's see if the bad luck, the misfortune, has passed Steve Arpin by. And how about the championship leader? Ready to go in Seattle. Red Bull GRC, it's time to bring the action.
Great start from all 10 cars, but the Volkswagens again dominate off the line. Speed outside of Faust. There goes Speed. He tries to tuck in, but Atkinson is right there on the rear of Scott Speed.
Tried to push that Subaru through on the inside of the Volkswagen. Now around the outside is Ericsson in the Red Bull. And he goes door to door with Scott Speed, and pushing through is Chris Atkinson.
Not for long for Ericsson, because Atkinson just jammed it right up there. And now Ericsson and Ericsson.
Mitchell
DeYoung, excuse me. 3 Red Bull Hondas going at it for 4th, 5th, and 6th.
DeYoung has been spectacular on the outside line and proves it again, and Arpin has already made up 3 positions on the opening lap.
But for the rest of the field, the Volkswagens have cleared out by about a second over everybody. We ride on board with Mitchell. Right on board with Mitchell DeYoung. He's just done a brilliant job on the opening laps for all the races today.
The call was be patient here, be patient here. I don't think that's in Mitchell DeYoung's DNA. He is a young, hard charger.
Scott Speed very carefully and precisely plotting his move as we go back on board to watch the first corner replay. And the surgeon, Scott Speed, so precise, so careful not to damage his equipment, and now he has a chance to challenge Tanner Faust. The question is, will he be able to, and does he want to push it that hard, knowing that it's his teammate and knowing that he still has the championship point lead?
Just got the message that Sebastian Ericsson went off track. Meanwhile, in the background is the Subaru of Chris Atkinson trying to chase down the points leader in Scott Speed. That's going to be a harder task than one would think, but if that Subaru can get on the podium, that's going to be another shot in the arm to that team, that driver. We've already had several take the Joker, Austin Cindric, Austin Dine, and Mitchell DeYoung.
Right on board with Steve Arpin here.
Cindric's 2 back. Cindric's 2 back.
Spotter giving updates. Car trailing is Austin Cindric, also an M Sport car. There you see Patrick Sandell, been a little quiet from Sandell, currently runs in 5th. But up front, I think this is where Tanner Faust has an advantage on Scott Speed. Tanner Faust is so comfortable manipulating the car with big slip angle, which is what that dirt corner requires. It's decreasing radius. Scott Speed is always so tidy with his driving, and I think the advantage goes to Tanner Faust over that critical dirt section.
Last time by it was 1.3 seconds, out to 1.5. Between first and second, the Andretti VW Rallycross teammates. His race leader, Tanner Faust, headed for victory, but he's got a lot of work to do, only halfway through this final. If he can get it, it would be Faust's 3rd win of the season.
You can see Scott Speed's hands there. Not really wanting to throw a big slip angle, very patient on the throttle. Up and over the jump. And I'm a little surprised. I would have thought as Patrick Sandell has turned around, Steve Arpin is somewhere in the mix. I wonder if they came together.
What happened there? And Austin Cindric and Austin Dine fighting it out behind those two as well. Let's show you what happened to Patrick Sandell, the 2nd of the Subaru Rally Team USA cars.
A little contact on Oliver Ericsson. Sandell makes contact and then contact with the tires as he turns himself around.
Unforced error, here we go. Sandell is in the action again with Steve Arpin this time.
Take it back, take it back, take it back.
Take it back, take it back, take it back. The radio call. Take back the position, that is. Meanwhile, Steve Arpin stole 6 spots away from the Subaru man.
If there is a bull that I would not want to poke in this series, it is Patrick Sandell. Already damage to that car, and I promise you, if Sandell can get to Steve Arpin, he'll put a bumper as one of the Red Bull Hondas, Mitchell DeYoung, is out.
Oh boy, and he had been running very well in the top 5. What's happened to the Honda driver? Meanwhile, less than 4 laps to run. First final in this doubleheader weekend here in Seattle at the Evergreen Speedway. This track has a little bit of everything on offer. Let's ride with Scott Speed. Healthy gap back to the 3rd place Chris Atkinson, and the top 3 drivers, top 3 cars in this final with less than 3 to go have not taken their respective Joker laps yet.
Look at the smoke coming off Oliver Eriksson, the right rear completely askew. It's a forklift, a 4-wheel drive forklift as Argy-bargy, Barpin just pushes his way right through.
Arpin has taken the Joker, so has Oliver Eriksson. There goes Sandell. He was yet to do it, so he'll lose ground on these guys to the tune of about 2 seconds.
I'll tell you, Steve Arpin has mastered the art of the bump and run here in Seattle. Should come as no surprise. He spent so much time in his formative years on short tracks, pavement oval racing. And look at this, I think Scott Speed has started to turn up the wick a little bit on Tanner Faust.
Yeah, down to 1.1 seconds, the margin first to second. However, laps and time are running out. And if you ordered the perfect weekend for Tanner Faust, that's exactly what has transpired.
Scott Speed has been very patient, saving his tires. I think he's trying.
At the entry to the Joker, it's going to be driver's left of the groove.
And you know, this is a pretty cool phase in Red Bull GRC history. These 2 guys, who just happen to be teammates with Andretti, are fighting over career record numbers, wins and podiums, and they go blow for blow, record for record. One takes it back from the other, and then shortly thereafter it's repaid.
One more corner to go.
Clean start, little arm wrestle with his teammate to begin with, but Tanner Faust lights it up off the final turn to get his 3rd win on the season and stay in touch, stay in the hunt for this Red Bull GRC Supercar title.
Great drive from Chris Atkinson to come home 3rd. But Tanner Faust, look at that car, pristine. That's a huge, huge boost in confidence for Tanner Faust.
Like I was saying before, if you ordered the perfect weekend, he just got it. Untouched today, halfway through the doubleheader. All 3 heat wins, semi-final, and now the 10-lap final going to the driver of the Rockstar Beetle. Oh yeah. It wasn't a massive win, 0.6 of a second. He lost part of that because he lit it up off the last turn just to showboat a little bit.
But it's a massive contrast lead to the last round in Atlantic City where Tanner Faust hit just about everything on the track, and he's just had a perfect weekend. What a great response as we ride on board with Mitchell DeYoung. Red Bull, Honda, 5 cars in front of you. What are you going to do? Got 2 teammates, 1 to the left, 1 straight ahead.
Oliver to the right.
Opportunity here in the brake zone.
Right up behind Oliver Eriksson. He gets nudged, then through goes Atkinson like a bulldozer. Beautiful move though. And here is Patrick Sandell. Boom. I won. Wow. And here is Steve Arpin's bump and run as Townsend was describing it earlier.
Well, and Oliver Eriksson was damaged from that earlier hit from Sandell as Arpin makes the move up the inside, but it doesn't get any better than this. Mr. Sideways, a master of the slide, Tanner Faust, untouched.
Big points day for the championship contender. We'll hear from him when we come back. Coming into any race weekend, a driver has their last race weekend in mind. Well, to help erase those negative memories of Atlantic City for Tanner Faust, nothing like a winless, nothing but a winning day helps do that.
It just really doesn't get any better than that, and such a terrific rebound to demonstrate that he can take it to his teammate Scott Speed, and I'm really curious to see what happens tomorrow. What does Scott Speed do? Does he crack open a can and take it back to Tanner Faust?
We will see, because the results tell you who finished where. A terrific podium for Chris Atkinson. Another nice morale boost to be the best of the rest outside of the Andretti VWs. Steve Arpin and Oliver Eriksson in the top 5 on what was a pretty hard-fought final in the mid-pack. But up front, it was all clear and all smooth for Tanner Faust. He's with Will.
Thanks, guys. Tanner, congratulations on not just a perfect weekend, but of course the win here today. When we spoke to you before, you were saying baby steps, and now here you are that much closer, staying in the championship title hunt. How does it feel after Atlantic City to come back like this?
See, Bill Murray, right? Yeah, that's a What About Bob movie reference, the baby steps. It feels so good. I mean, last weekend in Atlantic City was rough, and less rough on me than for these guys. You know, Brett, Kyle, Pricey, Boomer, these guys are absolutely rebuilding this car every single time when you have a rough race like that. Here to bring it home clean after 2 solid days of driving is such a good thing. I mean, especially with a doubleheader, and we're going to be racing again tomorrow. So that means these guys can go home and have a beer and not stay up all night. And maybe I'll sneak one in with them, but I know we race tomorrow. But yeah, it feels good.
And now moving into tomorrow, quick question, moving into tomorrow, obviously we'll be racing on the same track. You said earlier that there were specific areas on this track that took individual focus. Talk me through those and what you've learned today moving forward.
Well, it's pretty high speed here on the front straightaway, and diving into this oval corner, there's a real focus on the brake release in order to not upset the car and have it slide uphill. Then when you get into the next one, there's little potholes that you have to look out for. Then you come into the right-hander before the jump, and it's complete ice, and then there's one patch of grip that you have to get. That reminds me a lot of like snow driving. And then the last corner is all about saving tires. So each section of the track has a critical thing you have to focus on, and sometimes it just works out.
And it worked out today. Congratulations, Tanner. Guys.
14th career win, a record 30th career podium, and back-to-back wins in Seattle puts Tanner Faust just 31 behind Scott Speed.
But watching Scott Speed, he just seems so calm, even though he finished second, gave up those championship points. I just have a feeling that tomorrow for the next round, Scott Speed's got something to answer Tanner Faust with. Steve Arpin still holds his 3rd place position in points, and those Subarus are starting to make some progress with Chris Atkinson coming home with the podium.
Yeah, starting to climb up the order, and the best thing about all of this, we get to do it again, and you get to see it again tomorrow. Looking forward to part 2 of the doubleheader, 4:30 Eastern for round 11, and that is tomorrow afternoon. But coming up next, your local news, and a reminder that later tonight, it's Georgia at Notre Dame, right here on NBC. Yes, it was biffing, it was banging, it was barging, there was a whole lot of everything what you expect in Red Bull GRC, but in the end, it was Tanner Faust coming out as the round 10 winner. We'll see you tomorrow.